You're watching CHCO-TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the October 9th, 2024 special council meeting for the town of St. Andrews. I'm Vicki Hogarth. In today's meeting, Jamie Smith, chair of Explore St. Andrews, will make a presentation to council. Following that, council will review the 2025 capital budget. Now let's join council at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Council Chambers in St. Andrews.
All right, everyone, let's call to order the special council meeting for the 2025 budget review for the town of St. Andrews, October 9th, 2024. Here we are live at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex, but we're also airing this through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions pertaining to tonight's agenda, you can reach out to pnopper@townofstandrews.ca, and I'm sure Mr. Nopper will make sure to put that in the comments for anybody that is watching online. So let's take a quick recording of attendance. Councillor Neal is not online, and Councillor Blanchard, did he make it? No, so two not here this evening, but we do have quorum. And I do want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskotomagati people. I'll be looking for a mover to approve the agenda to get it on the table. I've got Councillor Bennett and seconded by, I've got Councillor Hurdle just beating Councillor Harland. Discussion, I do want to just do a little edit. I want to amend, it actually does not formally say Explore St. Andrews present under presentations. Dr. Jamie Smith will be presenting. Could I have a mover for that amendment, please? I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Harland. Any other changes to this? It's a pretty simple agenda, obviously, because the bulk of it is talking about the budget.
Closed session.
And we will go to closed session at that time. Mr. Nopper, you can let me know the particular reason act, I guess you could say, that why we're going there. If there's nothing else, all in favor of approving the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. And then back to the original, all in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. The agenda is approved. So we are now jumping ahead to presentations, and Dr. Jamie Smith, the floor is yours for Explore St. Andrews for the annual review.
Great. Thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors. I'm really glad to be here tonight. As you know, I'm Jamie Smith, and I'm here tonight as the chairman of the board of Explore St. Andrews. Paul's bringing up some slides that I think you've all had a look at, but I can run through those. As Paul's doing that, just a quick introduction. Really happy to have most of our board of directors here this evening. Ken Knight from New Brunswick Bed and Breakfast, Stephen Doswell from the Algonquin, Scott Hansen from Limestone Boats, who also has a long history in marketing, especially in tourism, Sally Leggett, our executive director, Crosby Colton behind, a retired journalist, marketing person, Nancy Lockerbie from Ministers Island, and Christy Kennedy from the Treadwell chart room Inn. So it's a great board, and thanks very much for all the support, and we're glad to be here tonight. So through the presentation, just give a bit more of a background on Explore St. Andrews, where we come from, sort of our present situation today. We'll talk about some of the activities we've been going through this year, our operations, some of the outcomes, things we've been working on, and sort of our ongoing things. And then we'll finish the presentation with a brief overview of what we're planning to do next year, activities as well as budget, and how that carries forward into 2026 and hopefully kind of going forward from there. Next slide. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Oh, sorry, thanks, man. Okay. So as you know, the Explore St. Andrews thing has been around for a number of years. I can't remember exactly whether it's 4 or 5 years since the levy came in. Started off as a committee of the chamber and then moved to a committee of the town. Last year, we undertook a strategic planning exercise with a consultant that really kind of looked at what we've been doing and looking at best practices in other destination marketing kind of things and the best way forward. And that strategic plan really set out the course that we're working on now. It set up a recommendation for a standalone organization with a clear mandate, clear objectives, tactics, there was budget, there was all kinds of stuff. And so that document has really served to be our kind of template going forward. It's a guide, it's not a script, but it certainly is a lot of the backbone of what we're doing now. And so from that, we drafted bylaws, we had them legally reviewed, we went through the corporation's application process, and we now exist as a provincially registered not-for-profit corporation with a clear mandate, which is on the next slide. I won't sort of bore you with the language there, but the mandate is very clear that we're here to steward the tourism promotion part of the levy fund through driving tourism development in the town. And from that, we've kind of interpreted how we measure that going forward. And those are the objectives you see on this slide. The increase in the number of visitors, and that's particularly in the shoulder seasons, increase in the length of stay, and increase in the spend per person per day, right? So all of those objectives are all focused on growing the sector throughout the year and getting the most bang from the buck of every person that comes to the town, whether that's beds in, heads in beds, campsites, attractions, restaurants, shops, services, everything, right? We're here to support everything. But a key piece of that, which we really want to stress, is collaboration. I think we've all known this, but it's really become evident in our work in the last year that ESA cannot do this alone. We must collaborate with the town, with the chamber, with the BIA, the Regional Service Commission, the province, so we can all leverage our efforts and our dollars to get the best bang for the buck. Paul? I can skip that one. That's so our activities this year, it's been a very, very busy year. We've accomplished a lot. I talked a bit about the establishment and the governance of the organization, our corporate registration, establishing our first board, going out for a public call for directors, 3 founding directors, 6 new directors, great team, very hardworking. We've established all of our board committees. Our terms of reference for board committees will be hopefully approved at the meeting tomorrow. Procedures, banking, sort of everything that we need to be a not-for-profit corporation, respecting all of our bylaws and getting going. We've hired our first ever executive director, Sally Leggett, from an international search. We found the right person in our own backyard, which was extremely fortunate. Sally's been able to hit the ground running because she's been here for 6 years. She knows the town. She has a huge love for the town. And so that's been able to really help us go very quickly this year. We've retained a bookkeeper to keep all of our records straight. We will be subjecting ourselves to an audit, so we know that financial transparency is extremely important, so that's a big piece of it. And also contracting specialized services as well, too. Our outcomes, there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, so I can't go into all, or not can't, I could if you wanted to, but don't have time to go into all the details. But certainly our festivals and event support, we supported, I think, 24 different festivals and events this year. Community support to the Welcome Center, to Katie's Cove. We've undertaken a fall marketing campaign, and the marketing committee of the board was hugely valuable in that process by actually doing the research, writing out a strategy for a fall marketing campaign, which we've never had before, recognizing what we know and what we don't know. So that's focusing on Indulge, Christmas by the Sea, some key events, and social media and writing around that. And then also on collaborations, as I mentioned, working with the RSC. Sherry Rice from the RSC serves on our board. She's a non-voting member of our board, so she comes to pretty much all of our meetings. And also we've established a direct relationship with the province, which I think, as a lot of you know, has been challenging in the past. But Sally, through her discussions and dialogues, and I think with help from Sherry as well too, now has established a direct working relationship for the province, and that's a good thing for sure. And also with the chamber comes to all of our meetings, with the BIA, and with you folks as well too. And then our ongoing work, we're deeply into a planning process for next year, putting our budget together with work plans. We want to have clear targets, measures, and also stakeholder input. We're having a board meeting tomorrow to kind of go through our budget again. We will be calling a meeting of the public to hear a presentation from us about what we're planning on doing for next year and getting some input on that before we finalize our budget as well. Right? Paul? And then looking sort of where we are for next year and going forward. So as I said, we've prepared a draft budget for next year. It will focus quite heavily on strategic investments. As you know, we do have an accrued revenue from previous years, so I can show you the numbers in a second here. And we've never really been in a position to make really well-informed spends on that. We think we are in a position to do that now. So 2025 will be kind of a bigger spending year where we'll make some strategic investments. We're looking at doing a very high quality video and broadcasting outreach of that video. We're looking at improving the highway signs that are out on the number 1 at either end of the 127. They're a bit kind of tattered, and we think we could do a better job with those signs for attracting people into the town, enhancing our social media. And also, we feel it's really important that we're getting more engaged input from our stakeholders. So we are planning on having a tourism summit, we're calling it, in January, February of next year. I'm going to guess and say it might be the first time such a thing has ever been done before in the town, by bringing the people in, putting some really important issues on the table and working our way through those to try and find some good long-term solutions. An example of that is the Welcome Center. And so that's going to be a big part of what we're doing for this year. And then getting ourselves up for 2026 being more of a regular, normal, if you will, carrying on from that. On the Welcome Center, we are proposing that for next year that we'll provide $32,000 from our budget. We're asking for the town to staff and manage the Welcome Center as per last year, but we'll be more engaged in the establishment of the center and the operation of the center. We also think there should be some improved signage, improving of the whole decor of the Welcome Center, and for training of the staff. And we're ready and prepared to participate in that, and then talk about a more longer-term sustainable plan for a Welcome Center concept going forward, whatever that will be. And also important thing about our budget is that we want to retain a surplus every year. We don't want to be spending every nickel we have. We want to be prepared for spends when they need to come along. We want to be good stewards of our money and making sure that we're making really well-informed and conscious decisions for each year. Paul? And this is kind of roughly how sorry, the numbers are kind of small there, Rats. I could have done a better job on that.
Council has it before them.
Oh, great, thank you. So looking at our draft budget, and it's draft, again, we have a few more iterations to go through here, so there's lots of opportunity for input. Carrying over our revenue from previous years of about $350,000. The anticipated levy, portion of the levy that would come to us based on estimates is around $335 for about $685, and then breaking it up into big buckets from there. So marketing promotion, about 58% of that budget, and that's kind of the big spends that I talked about earlier. Community support, which is the festivals and events, the Welcome Center, community support, around 20% of the budget. The planning exercise, that's the Tourism Summit, about 2%, and then staff and expenses around 21%. And then going forward then, you can see how it comes down, and it comes more of an equal distribution, about a third between marketing promotion, community support, and staff and expenses, right? And that's kind of our going forward model that we want to carry forward, that same rough distribution. So I hope that gives an overview of what we've been doing and talking about and where we want to go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any questions from member of council? I'll just kick it off. Question on the Tourism Summit. What would be the scope of that? Is that St. Andrews specific, or would that be more Charlotte County? Kind of, what would you be looking to entail as I guess you could say, who is there?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. And my fellow board members, please chime in if you like. I think the way we're looking at that is, I mean, first and foremost, we're stewards of the St. Andrews tourism levy, the promotion part of that. So our first and foremost obligation is to this community, right? But we recognize that there's collaboration to make that happen, and the collaboration so that we can leverage those dollars to get the best bang for the buck. So we want to have people around the table that are able to help us do that, and we help them as well. So that would be the RSC province, if they'll come, which remains to be seen, the province, and I think that's probably a good thing. We want to be sure that we're focused on our agenda, that we give time to have good discussions on the issues that we want to discuss, and work our way through and come up with some tangible outcomes from that.
So you're thinking St. Andrews centric, but open doors to anyone who wants to participate in the conversation.
Yeah.
And then one of the other questions I had, and I think it is improving, but one of the things I heard through the strategic plan was kind of gaps in communication to stakeholders. Again, on the outside, I haven't heard as much lately, so I think it has improved, but has there been any more strategy put into how do we communicate what we're doing to the people that might be collecting the levy through their visitors or other, professionals within the tourism industry.
Yeah, well, I think there's three ways we could look at that. First and foremost, it's on a day-to-day basis, and with Sally being in the position of executive director, with Sally's well, I don't know if personality is the right word. She's a very collaborative person, and she's been getting out and talking with people. One thing that we did this year that I don't think I've ever done before is that the board members were invited on a local fam tour. The board toured Ministers Island, Kingsbury Garden, the Huntsman, the courthouse, a number of places that went around. And so there was actually, our board actually got out of the community and we're talking to people face to face. So that's one way. The annual get-together, which we'll have over the next 2 or 3 weeks at our budget, and then the tourism summit is something that that kind of dialogue to bring people in and on purpose have the discussion on the tough questions. Don't avoid them. Just talk about them and try and find a solution to them.
Thank you very much. Any other member of council? Councillor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson, and thanks, Jamie. Great presentation. I appreciate the overview. I just have a couple of questions. One is around the collaboration with the RSC. Can you help me understand that a little bit? What does that entail, and is it a the RSC is a bit of a it's a challenging structure to begin with for me to understand completely, and I'm sure it is for the public. And so I'm just trying to understand when you have collaboration with the RSC, is it specific to St. Andrews? Is it Charlotte County? Is it about tourism overall? Just help us understand a little bit about that.
Well, maybe I can ask Sally to maybe make a couple of comments, and then Sally, if you want to add to that, please do. As I said earlier, our primary role is to be stewards of the tourism levy for the town of St. Andrews, and so everything we do is around that. But we recognize that has to connect in. So by having Sherry on our board, then there's sort of a required, if you will, dialogue there. I mean, it's written in our bylaws that the RSC has an ad hoc or a non-voting position on our board, so it's kind of forced to be there. But beyond that, Sally's developed more of a working relationship with Sherry. They're talking about, I guess there was FAM tours that was organized.
Shared data.
Shared data.
Collaborating on winter campaign.
Yeah.
So we can, piggyback on each other.
Yeah, I can add a little bit onto that since I'm able to see a little bit on both sides. So I will say, before with CCRTA, so the Charlotte Coastal Regional Tourism Association and Explore St. Andrews, no interaction really whatsoever. There was no collaboration. But from the outside, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Sherry's got an open door to Explore St. Andrews, and Explore St. Andrews has an open door to her, and Explore St. Andrews also sits in on the committee with Sherry for the Regional Service Commission. So I'd say, although there's still a lot to be determined, that relationship between the two of them is pretty good. And if you look at the Regional Service Commission model, the Regional Service Commission, obviously the mandate is the entire region, but they do recognize that this is the tourism hub for the region. And you can picture a big circle with a bunch of spikes going off it each way with other little circles. That's the way they view St. Andrews. So it is detrimental to the overall success of everybody. And until they have services built out in other communities, this has got to be a focal point of where tourists come. So I'd say that it's improved very, very greatly. And of course, Explore St. Andrews is a big part of that, but so is Sherry herself.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And my second question is in relation to metrics or outcomes. So, and I get the whole intent of increasing heads in beds and lengths of stay. But how can we as a council, or how can the general public understand the value for the dollar?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the reasons that we set out the 3 objectives that we did, and they're reflecting the full mandate of what we're looking at. It's not just heads and beds, it's the development of attendance at attractions, at restaurants, at shops, and the services. That, how we measure that, that's going to take some work, Councillor Harland, to do that. The only clear thing we have right now is that we know from the levy, right, we can, for the information that the town gets, we know the heads and beds piece of that, right? So that's it, we've got that one. The rest of it we don't have, and we have to establish the relationships to with the community so that we can get the information and track those. And it might even be one of the things we talk about at the Tourism Summit, right? Of how can we get information from the community so that they recognize that the investments we make, that they are targeted to what their needs are, right? We have to,
Right.
There's a relationship there that has to be developed to do that.
So that's something that's going to be worked on in the next,
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things we
period of
did this
time.
year, kind of as a start for that, was we retained a student for 4 weeks, was it, Sally? 2 weeks, sorry. And they went out with a clipboard downtown and asked questions to people on the street. They went to all the three main attractions and did the same thing there as well, too. So for the first time ever, since I've been around anyway, that I know of, we actually have data from somebody on the street asking
Right.
questions to the customers, what they're looking for, what are they experiencing.
great, good, thanks.
Any other member? Councillor Goodmichelle.
Thank you, and thank you, Jamie, for the presentation. Very well done. I know that in the previous council, when we kind of set this up, we were hoping maybe to get the Welcome Center off of our radar. We have so many things that we're managing, and before I went biking across Canada, I would have questioned the need for a Welcome Center here in town. I mean, I've been around long enough. I used to volunteer out at Ray Bishop's Welcome Center in Walwig, and I mean, you could really see the importance of having it then. You'd be talking people in, oh, you're going that way, you should stop in St. Andrews, da-da-da-da. But it seems like with the internet and Google Maps and things, maybe that wasn't as needed. But having biked across Canada, stopped in dozens of Welcome Centers, and you could see the importance of them if they are, as you seem to have planned, well done. Really nice, classy, I guess you might say, like Squamish comes to mind. But they're also parts of transportation networks, like it's a bus station / tourist center. So if we are going to keep the Welcome Center, and I'm still not 100% convinced that we need to be, that the town needs to be in that business, I would be leaning towards classing it up, and if we're going to do it, do it well, I guess would be my comment. But thank you for the presentation, all your hard work.
Great, thank you.
Just on that, for council's awareness, so there was a meeting that Mr. Spear and myself attended with, the Chamber's also invited, Explore St. Andrews, and we do need some type of long-term solution there, because it feels like every year it's been just one more year, just one more year, just one more year. But the truth is, when we sit down and have a conversation, I think I might have been the main one to say it, it almost just needs one more year. You've got a presentation coming. Anyone that went to the engagements on the courthouse know that they're proposing that a visitor information center goes there. We're talking about doing a visioning exercise for Market Square. I would assume that that would be part of a conversation as well. So in this next year, we should have some more clarity on what it is we want and where it is. And at that point, I think it would make sense to have a more permanent solution. And part of that is who does manage this. Staff did a great job of another responsibility, taking it on this year and managing it, doing a very good job overall. But to your point, I would think that you would continue to see the visitor center numbers fall down. The reality is they've been fairly steady over the last 5 years. So whether I use them or not, which I don't, some people do. And the other thing too is when we have a lack of washrooms in the community, it is a first point of contact when you're visiting our town, and one of the most popular complaints that we receive as a visitor. So as much as we'll get into it during budget time, Explore St. Andrews is bringing money to the table to help make it a reality. I think we just need to talk about, is one more year making sense? Because to me on the outside, because of all these outside factors I mentioned, courthouse and Market Square, it does feel like we need to find out what exactly we want and then make a permanent decision. So that's a very long-winded answer to that.
And if I could add to that, and the research that the marketing committee has done, and Scott has been a huge help in that, and it's been quite surprising to me. In other areas, the data is very clear of how important some kind of a physical presence for that. What's the term, Scott? In market? Do you have a term there? In market.
Just the source of information, and you can influence their in-market experience.
In-market experience, that's it.
Visitors,
Yeah.
over a third of them based on this region of the, whether it's our neighbors to the south in Maine and the Maritimes are looking for that experience, and it influences their spend and the time spent in the destination.
Right. So it's a very important piece of the puzzle, and so it really kind of, and we've talked about this a lot internally, and I think we're in sympathy with you folks as well too. We need to find a long-term solution to this key piece of the marketing puzzle.
Anyone else? All right, well, we appreciate you all being here this evening. We have an exciting couple hours planned, a budget conversation. There's no coffee here, but you're welcome to stay. Thanks for being here.
Great.
Oh, there is coffee?
Yeah.
Even, no excuses. Yeah.
Thanks for your time,
Thank you
folks.
again for being here. We'll give them a moment. All right, let's jump into the introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws and motions. Let's really try to keep this the 2 hours, council, just because we're meeting so much. Maybe less, but the 2 hours. Let's set a maximum time if everyone's in alignment of 8:30, just for. I think we can get through it, don't you, Mr. Spear?
Give me everything on here and we can be done in 5.
We will not be 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're good. So council, we're going to be referring mostly in your package. You have this page prepared by the asset manager will be our main focus for the night as we'll go through each of the items. So this is the capital budget discussions and the various assets owned by the town of St. Andrews, including our newest asset, the Bayside Community Hall out on Bayside. So we're going to look over the current situation really quick, just so you folks are aware. We have about $33.4 million worth of assets between vehicles, buildings, lands, etc. Roads and sidewalks and buildings make up close to half of everything, or slightly over half. So in the current year we're in, the major projects are the washrooms at Indian Point, the trails, the final bills yet to come in, that was our budget. Some paving and building renovations throughout, that's multiple buildings. And then projects that are underway but haven't been executed, of course, we got a new ladder truck, which should be in here in December, and then of course the wharf projects have been delayed, and it's roughly an $8 million budget on that right now, give or take. An important part of all of this, of course, is the long-term debt, and that's what we'll be looking at eventually in all of this. So at the end of the audit last year, we had about $2.3 million in debt. Expected debt from projects this year is $1.3 million. We made $277,000 worth of payments. So at the end of this year that we're in, we should have about $3.3 million worth of debt on the books. So we're going to take on the first set, and we're only looking at 2025. I may mention some major things for 2026, just so you can see what's kind of 2 years down the road. But these are currently services that we're doing and things that we need to review or to keep in order to keep our level of service. So the first thing is to replace not to replace, but to upgrade the 2017 Chevrolet 3/4 half-ton with a plow and sander. It's a light-duty truck that is primarily doing parking lots and some of the short end streets, like between water and the shore. And so it's always going during the storm to keep everything open. Part of the thing is we won't be trading in that truck though, because with the increasing staff we're having over the summer. Somebody's always driving people around like a taxi, to be honest, so it'd be better to keep that first truck. The trade-in value wouldn't be substantial anyway, and that would allow us to better utilize our staff. So it's about $70,000 for the truck for a 3/4 ton and about $35,000 for a plow and sander. One thing, as you can see, we've got these green chairs beside us here, and they are horrifically uncomfortable and frankly very ugly at this point, and they can't be cleaned. So we'd like to replace those for about $15,000. For the fire truck, which is going to be delivered, they need to upgrade some of the equipment there, including some brackets, a gas meter, defibrillator, and some other accessories for about $18,000. I think the list actually had about 15 or 20 items to properly put that on. This is in addition to stuff that they will be stripping off the first truck that is being replaced, but these are additional tools that they are requesting in order to be able to offer an upgraded fire service. Within the fire department, we're continuing a cycle of replacing Scott air packs. Those are the breathing apparatus that they use to go into buildings or hazardous areas. So for $17,000, that's just one unit, so 2 bottles and a mask and breathing apparatus for a 45-minute span. I checked with the chief earlier today, and after this year, there'll only be 3 more to do to bring them all up to regulation. So we've been doing a gradual replacement from them over the years.
Is there a date too where they can't be used? There is like an expiry date on them, I believe, too, right?
There is an expiry date. I think it's 10 or 12 years, and so some of this is in there that we've always got a certain unit that are going there because they do have to be certified. Yeah, and when we first started buying these, I think they were half as much like 5 or 6 years ago. That over the last 5 or 6 years, they've more than doubled in price. And the big ticket item out of vehicles and equipment is to replace our 2014 International 3-ton with a tandem truck. So at that point in time, it'll be up to 11 years of service. We typically only keep it for 10. So the benefits of the tandem truck is that the single axle, like you see now, only holds 5 tons in the box, but the tandem truck can actually hold 14 tons. And so there's several cases where you'll see our 2 dump trucks, say, in a water break, have to keep running back and forth to the yard to bring in materials to dump. Well, that'll mean it'll free up a person, that just one truck will go in, load up, come back, and have substantially enough material to do that. Also, with asphalt, mostly we're having to run to St. John, and our trucks are too small right now, so we have to hire it out. But we're paying a local supplier, around $1,000 a day to run up, pick up a load of asphalt, and then stick around as we spread it out around town. And so that'll help offset that, be much more efficient in that. Did I miss anything, Terry? Okay. It should be noted that in the next year,
Sorry, I was just looking at the next slide.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. You don't mind if I ask a couple of questions here, do you? So your dump truck there at 450, is that a standard full-size dump truck, tandem axle, 15-foot box? Is that what you're looking at replacing the little 3-ton with, or?
That's correct.
Where'd the number at 450 come from?
It came from the custom builders of the St. John, so those trucks are custom built because of the in-bought sander and the plow and wing. And usually right now it takes almost a year to build one of those trucks, so that number come from them.
So you're looking at a complete package, new plow truck, new sander, new everything, and you're looking at a full dump truck?
Yes.
Like one of the ones that the Department of Highways has?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
what's that? Yeah, so in the next year, just 2 items that are ahead are the sweeper truck, the 1994 sweeper truck. I won't get too deep into the future, but that is coming up. It's used. I saw it out this week already, trying to keep ahead of the leaves and stuff around the streets. But that thing's living on a prayer, duct tape, and bubble gum at this point in time. It's going on 30 years, so it's served us well. But it'd be quite a service to try to offset otherwise. if we didn't replace that, our two options are to subcontract it, which would be extremely expensive, or we could get an attachment for our sidewalk machines, but then they're just blowing the stuff into the air. You've probably seen them in cities and stuff, or sometimes on construction jobs. That 150 is a used price. And then we do have money in there to replace our current Zamboni. It's $150,000 for an electric Zamboni. Moving to the transportation network. So towards the end of my presentation, we'll break it down further, but there's 4 of those items that are really as a cause of having in-ground work done. So we're replacing sewer water mains, and so this is the cost of the asphalt on top. So there's Harriet Street, Champlain Avenue, which runs from Acadia down towards the end past the museum, Oppenheimer Museum. Then the Carlton Street, just a little block near, not a little block, a block near where the water main break was. Is that right, Terry? No, that's Prince of Wales where the water main break was. And Carlton Street was...
Right where the new housing's going for the Algonquin?
Right. Oh, that's right. So those are, we'll get into those a little bit later, but those are, if council decides to continue with in-ground work, that's the job to replace the street above. So if we go to the next slide.
Just a quick question on this
Yeah.
one. Champlain Avenue, what section is that?
From Acadia down past Oppenheimer Museum
Okay, I was
towards the
gonna say,
end.
so the part that wasn't recently redone, it's the dirt portion of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prince of Wales, sorry, I was on the wrong slide. So that's if we repave it?
No, that's a different thing. So that Prince of Wales is up by the Algonquin where there's a section that'll be replaced. Specifically, it's in correlation with the new spa going in there eventually. There's really old pipework there that was due to be replaced, and if they're going to be tagging into it, it'd be recommended that we replace that piece, that burlock. I mean, that's the in-ground stuff there. And that's just the paving. That's not the actual cost of the pipework. That's just the cost of and there's a slide towards the end where we combine them all.
And just back on Champlain, sorry, keep going back to that. So is the expectation that will be continue to be dirt, or will that be paved as well?
Dirt.
Just
There's just a little section there.
So are all these sections will be just restored back to the state that they're in now, but improved, obviously? 'Cause
More or
now-
less. So Champlain, there's a little section there that has paving on it, but from the museum over to Acadia Cemetery, sorry. And so that's that cost, but the rest of it will be gravel. Okay. All right, so these are the roads that need work on them, all of them fairly desperate shape. So we have Cemetery Road, which is between Diane and the gates. If you've been down there by the ball field and stuff, it's in pretty desperate shape. Frederick Street, which is the sidewalk and between Parr and Carlton with a curb. And then the Prince of Wales widening. So the Prince of Wales widening, I just want to touch on that. So it's $846,000. Within the paper report that's before you, it shows that eventually that's going to have to be done. It would cost $652,000 to do the job without the widening. But without the widening, we have to pay for 100% of it. And so if we pay to have the widening, we're going to get a grant of about $338,000. So our net cost is going to be about $500,000. I think it's 5 blocks. So it's basically from King Street to where we ended just before the water park, was that or the exercise park, Augusta Street. There's still a few questions. We think we're going to save a lot of the trees, but we have to come down and do a final plan if council's going to entertain this, that we didn't want to hire the engineers if this is put off the table. But they can have a look at that. They're aware of that that's coming, and that trying to find an orientation that saves the most of those maples. But most and not all.
Just over here, Larry Lack has a big tree that the sidewalk goes around, and further down by Jeff Johnson's, there was a tree, it's gone now, but the sidewalk kind of went around it. Is there opportunities on Prince of Wales to be creative like that, to, jug around the trees and maybe even have spots that slow the traffic down a little bit? Like, there's two problems on Prince of Wales, to my mind. One, it's too narrow, but number two, the cars go too fast in both directions. So maybe being creative with saving a couple of trees. And Jamie had mentioned this before. What's the right word for it? Traffic calming. Yes. He stole your. Thank you. I had a question for Terry.
I'd rather not see that as a maintenance point of view, mainly in the wintertime when we plow. Those two trees you're talking about is really difficult if you have any amount of snow. You get so much snow in front of your blade of that little sidewalk machine, and actually pushes it off the side. And actually where that tree was further down on Par that was removed, we had our sidewalk machine towed out of there 2 or 3 times because it kind of pushed it over the bank trying to get around the tree. So maintenance-wise for snow removal, it's not ideal.
It's like having a tree in your lawn when you're mowing it, I suppose. I don't plow, but I kind of get it. Anyhow, it'd be nice if we could save as many of those trees as possible, but walking down that street with children is, Brad's come with me, you got a hockey stick and you're waving it and people don't slow down. It's really, it's not much fun.
But it goes back to, you said about using traffic calming to narrow it, then you're going to be taken away from the walking area. So you can't have it both ways, I guess, in design, is you can't widen it and then have it narrowed for traffic calming. And we'll talk about other ways of traffic calming, but that's going to be one of the struggles. I don't disagree with you. And there's going to be some reports. I know cars will flip along there, but I don't think it's as bad as people think.
One more question, if I may. So growing up here, there's a lot of little houses like Wink Holt's house and some of those other houses have those little rinky-dinky driveways with small culverts. If you widened it, would the culverts would be under the street, I'm guessing? Like where would the ditch go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sort of. When I had CBCL down looking at it, they're going to try to adjust the whole street one way or the other. So just kind of move the ditches over back a little bit further. So the ditches will still be there. And this walking lane is actually going to be a shoulder of the road, right? So technically, if this happens, we'll be using the plow truck to plow that versus the sidewalk machine anyways, the wing. We'll just probably do a double pass and bring that over. So there'll be no trees to go around. They should be able to adjust it. But there may be a few trees that may have to come down. We just don't know which ones at this point.
So probably it would continue on the shoulder, would continue on the side. Thank you.
Quick couple questions on this. So for the Prince of Wales widening, if we didn't pursue this right now, when would it have to be replaced? How close are we to the end of its life cycle?
It's pretty well at its end of its life cycle right now.
Okay. And then part B of that is, I know we've talked about it, but before we approve this, I would really like to know exactly how many trees and which ones, just because the amount of public backlash on 2 trees getting cut down would be quite significant on this. And I know you have to make tough decisions as being part of any council, but we should be aware before we approve this, what are exactly the impacts on that street.
We can engage the engineers tomorrow to start having a look at it. And this won't be a first time they've looked at it type of scenario, so hopefully they can be relatively quick at it. Just for 2026, just to be aware, the big one, we've been getting calls about this for the last couple of years, is Joe's Point Road should be addressed. That road is just about gone horrifically. We appreciate that. It's under 2026. And then Canterbury Close and Crestwood Lane both are due for replacement too, or re-asphalting.
Is that going to need I'll declare conflict, but is Canterbury Close gonna require to be pulverized? It's literally asphalt. Yeah, it's gonna be a big job, because it's literally, the road is on your lawn every spring, so I figured it was so far gone, we can't just, okay, thank you.
That price reflects that. Buildings and facilities, or building and structures. All right. So the first one is kind of being brought forward, so you're aware, and I think some of you are aware, but it's been an ongoing battle with our tennis courts. We replaced those, I'm going to say in 2008 maybe, and we added 2, we milled it down for the 2 that were there, did a whole bunch of stuff, and within 2 or 3 years, we started getting spider cracking on them throughout. And it's all over the place there now. And to pulverize or basically replace the asphalt surface and repaint it, and that green paint is done by a professional, and that's a fairly hefty price in itself. It's about $615,000. Now, they've been playing on it for a few years that way. We keep asking them, is there a tripping hazard? Is there a play hazard? If you hit the ball, it's like golfing, you'll hit a rock or something and then it'll take off. They say there's nothing like that right now going on. We're always keeping an eye on it, whether it's a tripping hazard. I go up and we'll do shuffles all over the courts to make sure nothing catches, to see if someone's playing along there, it's not going to go flying. And so the court is playable, but it does deteriorate every year. That's usually through the winter. What we're doing now to offset it is we're basically put the equivalent of caulking in the cracks in the winter to try to keep the worst ones, to try to prevent moisture getting down, and then we redo it in the spring because it doesn't last, and then put a little bit of paint on top to try to blend it in, and it has been working. So it's there. It probably doesn't have to be done next year, but it's one of those, if you don't do it preventative, we'll just lose it. 1 or 2 of the courts will deteriorate, or something will happen that you can't actually play on it. And then we'll be left dealing with it.
Quite on this one, wasn't this just redone on the last council term?
Yeah, so 5 or 6 years ago, we had a company from Montreal come up, and they tried something, looks like mesh, that green, or put it all over, supposed to help with, it didn't. Armor fill? So it's a plastic size type of mesh that you put over. They paved it, painted it and stuff, and the first spring it was just already cracking.
And no warranty with that? No?
Well, we'd have to go to closed session to discuss that one.
Councilor
Thank you, Your Worship. Just prior to coming here, I actually went up and walked the tennis court because, when I see severe cracking, and there's no doubt there is some cracking there, you can see where it's been filled and stuff. It kind of bothers me to hear severe cracking and then go up and look at it, and the idea that it's unusable is certainly, would suggest the severe cracking. I would not, in my opinion, estimate it at severe by any means. There's definitely some cracking there, and you're right, most of the cracking is not in the playing surface. The idea of spending $615,000 in the upcoming year when we've got millions of other dollars in expenditures, that's in addition to running the town, is probably not something that I would suggest that we even look at. That's a heck of a lot of money for the limited amount of use that it gets, and the shape that it's in, especially if it's only been a couple of years since it's been worked on in the past. That's just my humble opinion, but I don't think that the definition of severe cracking is meant or is adequate when you go up and you look at it. Thank you.
Councilor Heenan.
Your Worship, regarding the tennis courts, first off, Councillor Bennett, I don't believe we said that it was unusable. I think that's number one. Number two, to tell you that it's used all the time in the summertime, not infrequently, so it's used all summer. And number three, I do believe that we need to have somebody that's qualified, unless you're an engineer, to base on what the cracking is like. So I don't ever remember us saying it was unusable, which you referred to. I believe we said that we asked the players and that they use it, and there's no problem. I think that was what we said about 10 minutes ago. Thank you.
Your Worship, if I can, please. First of all, I don't think I made anything not accurate when I said that just prior to this meeting, I went and looked at it. So your opinion of my opinion is not appreciated. I think that if you got your own personal opinion, you should keep it to yourself based on what my opinion is.
Oh, excuse me, Councillor Bennett. There's just a point of order there. He's allowed to express his opinion just like you're allowed to express yours. You can't be telling other councillors they can't express their opinion.
Mayor, you're 100% right.
Okay.
But what I said was I gave my opinion, and I said it was my opinion based on what I
Perfect.
did.
And you can reiterate your opinion for sure.
And the comment that I'm getting from another councillor, I believe is not appropriate. It's, I purely gave my opinion on the condition, and I said what I think that we should be spending our money on. And I don't believe, and I still feel very strongly, that a $615,000 expenditure on resurfacing that, especially in a year where we're going to be spending millions and millions of dollars on a wharf and painting of a building, is something that is not appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, so just on the process of this, council, we are going through the list today. Just because we go through the list doesn't mean it's happening. So what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to go through these line by line and debate them, simply for the fact that I do agree, if we do all this, the debt ratio of the town on top of the wharf and the fire truck will be too significant. So as much as these are all things that we should be aware of, the reality is we cannot do them all. I think we know we can't do them all. So really what we're going to go through is so everybody knows what all of the different priorities are, and then what we're going to have to do is make some tough decisions. So that's kind of the process. So by all means, speak up like you did when there's something that's of concern, but in reality, just because they go through it doesn't mean these are going to go through. We are going to have to cut some of these projects. I guess in theory, council could approve them all, but again, I'm really concerned with the debt ratio of going ahead with all these. So we're going to have some tough conversations and probably remove some projects, and this perhaps would and should be one of them. So we will definitely enter into that one for you.
And Your Worship, and this isn't to say that all of these are staff recommended either. We're just bringing forward some of them. The ones, which isn't on the screen but is in the council packages, anything with an A, council or staff are saying that is really important, we better get that done. B can probably be put off for a year. Anything where there's just a blank box under staff rating, we're bringing it to your attention of something we've seen and certainly willing, it's up for discussion by council to let us know what direction you want to go with it. And speaking of that, the curling club ice surface. So the building, I have to say, was built in the early 70s, I think, 68, 69. And so within the cement, there's a whole bunch of pipes that go that causes the freezing. And back in, when I first started here, they had just completed redoing the ice surface in the main arena in 2002. But they didn't do the curling club from my recollection. And so the pipes in there, I believe, are metal, right, Terry? And so the rusting, and especially in our system, it's brine water, so it's salt water that runs through everything. It's just what's needed in the ice-making process. And we do occasionally get leaks in it, but it's a $970,000 bill to do that. We can repair it. What the risk is always going to be is we put the ice in, and then in December, January, we spring a leak. You may have to melt. You could be without curling for a couple or 3 weeks to melt, clean, repair, create new ice.
So yeah, we'll have to get into the details, but I think we're going to spend $1 million on a curling club floor. We do have to meet with the curling club to figure out the long-term longevity of the curling club membership, what the sustainability is. We're going to have to review the lease. Unfortunately, someone does have to pay for that outside the taxpayer as well. So there's a lot to that one. And to Councillor Bennett's point, I think that on top of the wharf and the fire truck, to do all these projects would be a lot. Councillor Ware.
Yeah, I guess I had two quick questions. Is do we collect substantial rental income from the curling club?
Yeah, so we sign a lease that's around $32,000 a year for the season, for the 6 months.
Everybody has their own definition of substantial, I guess. I've been a member of 2 curling clubs. neither of which was subsidized by a municipality. One in a city up north, one in a town down in this area. And I just find it's a lot of money for a municipality to put into a curling club. It's for the benefit of members, no different than a tennis club. Unfortunately, I believe in the old user pay thing, and but I know how hard we've worked at keeping those two curling clubs open because we had no municipal support.
Yeah, just on that point, it would take 30 years of lease payments the way it is today to pay that back, not including interest. And of course, out of that 30,000, a significant amount of that's going to power because of the plant, right? So the truth is this will not be paid back through the lease the way it stands today. This would be subsidized by the taxpayer. Okay.
Just to add on that, there are some grants and stuff available. We don't know how much. We did get some information on those, but that's a discussion for a different day. The courthouse, based on their tender to repaint it, it's $300,000. It's there. Town hall. So town hall, the public washrooms there, I think could be said to be in poor condition. We're talking the public washrooms on the outside. They haven't been replaced or refurnished for 30 plus years. And so we basically want to re-gut and rebuild them over the winter. That's mostly our staff doing it, or I guess, yeah, except for a plumber. And so that's money that should be taken out of the TALB, I'm thinking. So it wouldn't be against the taxpayer of St. Andrews, but it's about $105,000 to do that. We're talking about whether they could be reconfigured, and the answer is basically no, because a lot of the plumbing's coming through the slab, and so you kind of have to put things where the plumbing's already in the concrete unless you're going to start digging down into that, which would add substantially to the cost. There's also some, the copper piping's having some weeping and stuff that's creating issues, and has already. So it's not just a cosmetic thing, but there's some structural stuff going on there as well. And again, in order to provide a good experience, it'd be good to get those back and give them a refreshment. Below that is the shoreline, protect the shoreline, which goes from basically from the wharf all the way down to the NBTEL building. We have a small easement there, which originally meant to be a boardwalk, which was never completed, but there is a wooden wall there, and it's starting to rot, similar to Market Square. Terry, remind me, is there a sewer line there too, or no?
Just back further from it, Chris.
Okay. But, you know, that should be done. We could probably tie it into the wharf project, the truth be told, so that can probably be delayed a year. The wellness center, the alarm system that was installed isn't working, and we've had the vendor down. They don't know how to get it working, so it should be replaced for $6,900.
Would that be with a different vendor?
Yeah.
Okay. just making
Believe
sure.
me.
Sorry for asking the obvious. And not to expedite this, but so the B is for priority B.
Priority B is like a year.
Yeah,
It can be
okay.
deferred a year or something.
Let's just determine right now, there's so many priority A's and it's more money than we have, that if something's a priority B, we're automatically putting it down the road. Like, it's just too much money for all the A's. Does everyone agree with that? Just a quick consensus to save time? Okay, so any B's we're not doing this year.
Okay. The Welcome Center, we'd like to install a second heat pump in the front half of the room. So if you're in there this year, it's where the actual Welcome Center is, sorry. That the other one is at the other end of the wall and just wasn't making good circulation of the air and stuff, so it got mighty hot some days in there. But again, that's not rated, meaning I don't think it was ever to the point where people were in danger. As long as they could keep that middle door open, they were okay, but sometimes there were meetings and stuff going when the chamber was there. And so it was closed and it would heat up. The arena, so renovate the lobby washrooms here, it's the same problem. I don't know if those washrooms have been touched since the building was built, for any of you that have been in it. It's, and now it does serve as a welcome center washrooms for people coming in. It's about 95,000. I'm assuming again that it's our in-town staff that'll be doing most of the work. It should be noted that Terry wanted me to pass along that for the town hall public washrooms, it'd probably be a 2 or 3 month job. So it means they'd be closed over the winter for the town hall. These ones would have to be done after the winter, so it'd be just done through the summer and stuff. So it might mean for a brief time we have to bring porta potties for the tourists if we can't turn those over real fast. I do know from our experience when we built the wellness center, all the stuff was put in cement, and that was a pain in the bum when you have to dig out all that stuff out, those old bathroom fixtures and stuff, so it takes time. The age-friendly community always gets a grant of $10,000 through various initiatives. The town office computer replacement is just ongoing. The cost of them are going up, so it's only about 3 or 4 computers these days. We need a new water pump in the compressor room and as part of the ice plant in the arena. Don't know if there's anything else for $11,500. The Public Works garage, one of the doors is a bit too small for the equipment that's going inside it, and we've had some hits on it. And so we want to rebuild it, put it up a little higher. It's about $15,000 to do that, and to replace and to make it a bit taller. The youth center, they'd like to replace some cabinetry for $3,600. For the Bayside Community Hall, they want to replace, I think it's 3 doors, the main doors and the kitchen door, and then the back main room door? Okay, so that's for $15,000, and that'll bring it up to fire code too, just like the push bars. For the museum, we've been offering to paint and repair the foyer for every year for the last 3 or 4 years. Haven't gotten to it, but we'd like to do it this year. For the exercise park, so there's 3 of the tall items should have rubber matting underneath them, because it's quite a fall if someone's doing it and falls. But the matting is extremely expensive. It's around $25,000. So I'm checking with the insurance, and they sent me something back today. We've never had anyone fall off it. I don't know, I think, it might sound silly, yeah, but to get some type of harness they can wear on it, so if they do fall off it, it catches them up or something, I don't know, but that's there. It is a recommendation. I can't say if it's a necessity, though. And then for the library, they like to add a heat pump to the rear room, so if you go in the back side of the library, coming in on the left, it used to, I think it's still the periodical room, and I think there's a workstation there. They've actually got a construction heater in there, the big boxes with a fan. So that would probably pay for itself in 2 or 3 years because the electricity that goes through there. And as Paul reminded us, all these heat pumps, you get a 25% rebate from NB Power on them, or NB Efficiency, whatever the agency is. So the actual cost is less than what's there. Yeah, we'll jump to the next slide.
Could I chime in with just a quick question, comment?
Yeah.
With regard to the Bayside Community Hall, I know that we didn't have much choice in taking it over, but after our experience with the museum, I'm wondering if we shouldn't have some kind of policy going forward that when the town is in the position to take on a new asset, that we have a detailed plan that comes to council for review, whether we have a choice or not. But I'm sure that the asset manager and crew prepared a detailed report on the Bayside Hall that we just got a shortened version, but I'd like to see the more detailed one, even in hindsight. But I think moving forward, if there's ever an asset that we're taking on, that'd be a good exercise to be going through, just as a general comment. Thank you.
Councillor Weir, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll comment on the Bayside Hall. As far as the committee goes, we're not overly concerned about the doorways, but it's fire code. We got away with it for years now. Of course, part of the town. Fire code kicks in a little, just a bit more. So.
No comment. Yeah, and on the plus side, it is getting a lot more use there, including 2 leases signed So there's line dancing going on a routine basis this fall and over the winter, and gymnastics is going to be happening too. So, this stuff will kind of pay for itself. So if we're going to be using it as a public space more often, it's important to have that there. And for Councillor Gumashell, we did get a report about a year after the amalgamation from an engineering firm, but we'll leave it at that. But if we're looking, I agree 100%, though, what we've learned from, we'll say, the courthouses, we should just, instead of saying, trust us, here it is, we should be sending in our own consultant to do a real look at whatever we're taking on to make sure that we're going to be able to afford it. Because as you saw, even a free gift sometimes is costly. Okay, so real quickly, Thomas Avenue, the storm main, that's been there since the 60s, I believe. It's fairly root grown and stuff and has caused flooding in some of the homes there. We actually had it in the budget last year, but it was half the cost of what we thought, and so we ended up ditching it, excuse the expression. And so this is for a full replacement.
Yeah, it's been flooding there for a while. Just a quick one back on the buildings and facilities. On the courthouse, what is the legal process if, I won't say names, but there's a painter in town that just says, I deal with lead paint all the time, I scrape it and repaint it? What would be the legal consequences of us not doing $300,000 and just scraping it and painting it? Is it legally required to do full mediation for $300,000, or is that a nice to do? I'm just wondering, just because
I'll say it's illegal.
I'll
I'll have to say it's a legal requirement because it would be under Department of Environment guidelines, it'd be under workplace health and safety guidelines, et cetera.
And then my question on that one is, if it is repainted, what is the condition of the boards under it in their life cycle?
So as part of, well,
because I don't want to paint something if it's just gonna.
so part of the
You're on.
$300,000 is to replace some of the outside boards,
Okay.
to be honest. And we're still looking at that because we almost wonder if it'd be cheaper just to rip off all the boards and re-put new ones on because of the cost. The cost of scraping is monumental. So we're looking at that. But back to Councillor Gumashell's, the more you do work, the more surprises you're going to find when you get into older buildings. That's known for sure. Remembering that we hoped this was a $100,000 job 2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Keep going with the storm main, but everyone's aware that area does flood on Thomas Avenue.
Yeah, so we're jumping to Market Wharf and Market Square. So the rear flower, there's just a whole bunch of smaller stuff, including the rear showers and washrooms, the fascia, and some new things along the building that need to be replaced. As we know, $15,000 doesn't go a long ways these days. It's just to give a nice upgrade to the building. It should be worth noting that excluding debt payments, the wharf does pay for itself. It does show a small surplus. Its debt is a big component, don't get me wrong. But it does, and it's one of the things many visitors see, whether coming from land and sea or just taking a walk out there and getting a view of the town. So I think that's one that's important. Just the finger piers, what all the boats are tied up to, I think it was a donated asset, to be honest, from years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And it just needs some brackets that need to be replaced, around $8,000. I think we have to take it to be welded. Yeah, so, and then I just put phase one of the wharf in there. We know roughly what it is, so $2.5 million in total. I'm just making a guesstimate of how much that's going to cost for next year. Just for 226, of course, is phase two of the wharf, $6 million, and just back to the wharf visioning project, I guess somewhat, we have $150,000 there for new furniture and stuff if council wants it. It's more of a consideration than a recommendation of staff. So we get additional capital requests. Some are worth having, but they are additional assets to the pool. So as we stated earlier, the first ones we're kind of taking our current services and things that we're doing and replenishing them or keeping them going. So one is we'd like to continue with the surveillance camera system. It's about $52,000. Sorry, I just had a thought too. Make a note. Continue that around town. Those cameras are primarily on town facilities, though, as you see in the thing. They're not really put out in the traffic. We can discuss with BIA about getting some cameras and tying it into our system. We've already got a couple or three tied in, so they buy with us. They can get a grant from the province or Canada, downtown BIA, to do that, so we can continue to work through that. For town hall, if you skip ahead a couple, three, they're right there. So we know we've got an ongoing washroom problem in the town, and as you know, we've had those porta potties there for every summer, and up and down. They work, they're not pretty, and frankly, most people will stand there and dance for 10 minutes waiting for the bathrooms to open up before they'll go into those. And so, believe me when I say Terry and I, and Paul, but Terry and I for 15 years have tried every piece of property and configurations for public washrooms in the downtown. We've tried partnerships and stuff, and it's just very, very limited what we can do. And so we're talking this year, and what we think we could do is make one row of washrooms, like across from the current washrooms, that they're 4 stalls plus a mechanical room, and that would replace the thing. They're about, well, I can't see them. I think it's, what, 8 feet deep? Yeah, 5 by 5 for each stall, so 5 by 20. And so that will help, and they're universal. And so it is a fairly big price tag on that, at $130,000. Again, I can't remember, Terry, is that built or is that you guys building it except for the in-ground? Okay, so they do some of the thing. We could use the TELB money on that, but if you combine the washrooms down, or the refurbishing of the main washrooms plus those, we might be getting to the end of the TELB fund. I meant to add up what we had left, and I forgot, so we'll do that for council before the next meeting. But that's about $130,000 to build those. The porta potties aren't cheap. They're about $400 a week to have those there, just so you know. And so we have those there about 10 or 12 weeks, so that's 5 or 6. So, yeah, so there's only 2. So that'd be $250 a week. So it's about $2,500 a summer to have those there, plus what they are. One of the requests at the youth center was to add storage space on the back of the building. It'd be 10 by 20, including a cement slab underneath it. If you've ever been in there, you know they're just completely run out of space. And they throw stuff out and stuff, but as they add new programming, they need storage space to put the stuff, and especially with Mervyn now being there, and he's trying to add more stuff. And then, just as important, we have the seniors using the space now through the day as a meeting spot, and so that's a request.
Just to back up, just on the town hall new washroom, like, I think to refurbish and build a new one in the same year, that's a big bill versus do it in phases over years. I just wonder, council, if you talked about a visioning exercise for Market Square, and I know everything can't go in Market Square because there just won't be space, but would a type of building like this, though, not be part of a visioning exercise to say that versus build a washroom beside a washroom, should we not have one in another location to spread them out? And you got to think of an event like Paddle Fest, the fact they bring in porta potties, you had a 5-stall washroom right there. Do they need porta potties anymore? When you have a concert, music in the square, does it make sense to have washrooms right there where people can access? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the front of this is a visitor information center. Should you decide that? And the back's wash? I'm just wondering, versus go one way before you do that exercise in the downtown, should that not be part of an overall strategy on the space? I just would hate to go too far down a road. And again, maybe the infrastructure can't be brought in there because it's cost prohibitive to bring in water and sewer, but I got to think that Dan Murphy with his business would have some type of line running right there.
There's water, sewer, and power throughout the square. Everybody's on the other side is fed through the square.
So just because I think a lot of people, because it's at the side of town's hall, have a hard time finding it as well. And I wonder if it was more visible in Market Square, people would find those washrooms as well. Just something to consider before you go too far down any road. But it is a great suggestion because space is limited, to your point. And really, 95% of the people are going to that main square to look for where they can go to the washroom. Sorry to go backward. I just wanted to put
No,
that in
that's
council's
okay.
mind.
Can you pump ahead again, Paul, to the diagram? So the next item on the list is a new parking lot by the trailhead. I think council has seen that. That'd be off of Water Street. That's the Van Horn Trail across from Langmaid Park. So there's 24 stalls there. Let's cut it off, but it's a one-way parking, it's a dead-end parking lot. There was discussion whether or not we could move it to Queen Street, into the Queen Street extension, but it may not be the best presentation to give the town to go up by Public Works and stuff. But anyway, for $98,000, we had that priced out, we can do that. Again, if we don't run out of money, the TAL would be a good source of funding for that, potentially.
Yeah, it sounds like we're going to run out of money just based on the projects. But council, that is a parking solution close to the downtown at a reasonable price compared to what you'd have to pay $98,000 just to get the lot to put that in there, let alone. Councilor Hurdle.
I think with a space like that where it is, we'd also have to consider surveillance and security of some kind too, so that would probably add to the sticker price.
And just a question on that one. I know there's going to be some sensitivities to neighbors, but why wouldn't we do both sides of it and double the space to make impact on our downtown parking? Is it sensitivities to the neighbors?
Well,
in the green space?
it would add significantly to the cost. And the reason is this, you just can't throw stalls. You're going to have to widen it out twice as wide, probably, in order to you're going to have that much traffic for turning and people driving back and forth.
It looks like you have the room, though.
I think
Again, it would, if you were
land-wise,
if
we
you were,
probably
if
do.
you were a neighbor to this, you wouldn't appreciate it because you have a parking lot in your backyard and you're used to having a mowed lawn by Public Works. But the reality is we have a parking challenge in downtown St. Andrews. This connects to Water Street. It's right on a trailhead, and you have an opportunity to make a significant impact on parking in the downtown, which is one of the other big, when I say washrooms are a big complaint, accessibility and parking are obviously, we know the other two that we hear, and parking is number one. I'm just saying if we've got an opportunity to make a splash, this is a huge splash that you could make. And again, not saying you do it, but it should be discussed because you could double up the parking there, I think, based on space. I don't know for a fact, but it looks like you could do that exact same thing on the other side.
Terry, do you have any?
Yeah, just need 6 more meters on the other side.
Oh, we're 6 meters short or just
No,
6 meters
you
over?
would just have to add 6 more meters of pavement and base.
So roughly, I don't know with the mouse, if you could estimate how far, like, there you go, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
wouldn't-
you're
wouldn't be
now,
that far.
again, it would add a lot of cost, don't get me wrong, but that would be, like Councilor Ware said, when we talk about economic development, we need to talk about parking. That's a significant move. Yep. Councilor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship, and we also talked about perhaps buying a lot and putting parking in. This would seem to me to be a far better solution because of the pricing, number one, and it serves 2 purposes. It would also be for the trail, and it would also alleviate some of the heavy downtown parking. I like the idea. Thank you.
Councilor Michelle.
I also like the idea, but I would prefer, if possible, that it continue up to Queen Street Extension, and then it would make you could go in either way, and you would maintain some green space, having a longer, skinnier parking lot rather than a big one. But I'm wondering about that lot off of Queen Street Extension. I know that it's town-owned. I think it's town-owned.
We could. We've looked at that, Terry. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, we could continue that right to Queen Street Extension.
That would make a lot of sense. And then you could always add it on after the other side. It's not, like, there'd be some, I don't want to use economy of scale, but you got the gear all set up there. There'd be some savings in doing it all at once, but the reality is you could do it this way, and a future council could say, hey, we still need more parking. We should do the other side. And the other thing is we're assuming that people will go down there to park. They may not go down there as much as we think. I'll give you an example. The high school, a lot of people, the public don't know, is part of the problem. The high school sits empty almost all summer, where people are parking every side street. And as much as they complain, they're not willing to go to a designated parking spot. They want to still park on a side road as close as they can to the downtown. So to put a lot of parking and see 5 cars there, there's a little bit of a risk if you build it too big, right?
But the difference with the high school and even the community college was we haven't been able to put up signage for parking.
True.
You could really emphasize people, here's good parking. And also, we also used to see this at the, when we used to use the Legion parking lot, that a lot of the employees from the downtown would migrate. So to open up, and they weren't able to do that this year, so there might be an opportunity, because it's, it's not that far of a walk, that people could park up there and then walk back to their jobs, opening up more spaces on the front street for tourist traffic or citizen traffic for short-term parking, I guess we'll say.
Thank you.
Hmm? It's funny. I'll get a skateboard.
Take the hop on, hop off bus, folks.
Yes, that's right. The next item is the install a crosswalk from Reed Avenue. The council was sent a picture. I meant to integrate it into the slides. I forgot to, for the public to see. Again, the cost isn't more than just paint. There's got to be some concrete put in to create a walking area once they get over by the arena, and we have to lower a curb as well. So that's where that cost is. It's more than just the paint, as people tend to think. The fire department has asked for TMR radios. So if you remember, maybe 4 years ago, they moved to that new digital mobile radio system. And right now, the fire department, the captains are carrying, and some of the other staff are carrying 2 different systems. They're carrying a VHF radio to communicate closely, then they have the digital radio to communicate with like the police and everything. Well, by buying these radios, that means every active member responding would have one, could all join into the same channel that involves all the responders, and they could hear what's going on, be given directions, etc. Their breathing apparatus actually has a spot there that can connect into it too, so they can hear it through their things and things. So talking to the chief earlier, it would be easier if we bought them all in one sitting, but at the same time, we could do it over a couple of years if council so wishes. It should be noted too, I'd have to double check, there might be a licensing fee on top of that was paid for in the original system by Justice and Safety, I think. So I've got to check on that. That might be a little bit more. I wouldn't think it'd be too high, but I'll follow up. The fire department is also asking for what's called a gear grid system. So I guess the best way I understand it is when you watch on TV and see hockey players in the NHL, they have those little stalls with the hooks and stuff that just give a little bit of privacy, not full lockers. It's just so they can put their equipment in and have everything there. Now they're essentially just racks on the walls. Everybody's stuff is there, so they're kind of tripping over each other. They're still efficient.
They have one now, don't they, there? Yeah. There's one right behind. A portable one, yeah, so it gives you an idea of what it is if anyone wants to see one.
So 2 ventilation saws. What he told me, they're like carbon-tipped chainsaws, or carbide-tipped chainsaws. For the youth center, we'd gone back to the Dunn Foundation and asked about this, but to create some accessibility by adding some doors and doing some work on the washrooms. The Recreation Department has asked for a used vehicle for a couple of reasons. During the summer camps especially, they were running back and forth quite a bit with materials that was too big for the cars they had, and they had some kids who were mobility challenged, we'll say, and everything from some that used devices to others that were just so out of shape that even walking a couple of blocks was hard. And so they have asked for that. The Recreation Department has also asked for a portable stage trailer. This has been brought forward in previous years. We've looked at 2 different things. To buy what completed one, like you might see in St. John, sometimes they'll bring one up by the boardwalk. That's about $100,000. So what Terry and Mike LeBlanc have said they come up with a design to basically take a landscape trailer, we call them, it's just a flat trailer, and design it so it can stabilize, so it can hook up, take it, drop it in the square, then it has to be moved around. The big thing about that is it does save a lot of time. We've got the farmer's market saying it's out of the way a little bit. And sometimes we've had to move it between the square and the arena, especially this past month when we were having events at different locations. It takes 2 guys half a day to be working that thing. So it would be a nicety, not a necessity, but a nicety, but it is about $37,000. It's our own custom made. Maybe if we do so well, we'll sell the plans to other municipalities and
Is this
recoup the
primarily for the concerts in the square? Is that the?
concerts in the square.
But like other than that, it'd be like 4 times a year, maybe.
It depends, because I don't know,
Okay.
can you get it in the arena, Terry, or probably not for like indulge and stuff? Okay,
Indulge uses Kingsbury stage pieces, yeah.
okay. So, anyway, that was there, just for your consideration. We had a good meeting at Bayside Hall a couple of Saturdays ago, and we talked about a building, but the building was fairly expensive. And so what staff's recommendation right now would we'd get a fence enclosed dumpster, and it would have 2-man gates, then a big swinging gate, so, you know, the garbage truck could still back in and pull it out. And then they'd sell it with barbed wire on the top, put outwards, so it should discourage any animals from getting in. Or worse, they get in, too afraid to get out, but whatever the case is. A building, you're probably looking at $15,000 or $20,000. The other problem we have, it doesn't cost as much as the bathrooms, I know. The other problem we have out there is we don't own any land, so we'd have to get into a longer-term lease agreement. This type of fencing shouldn't be as a big a deal, but if you're going to put a building on cement, then you're going to have to get into some type of long-term agreement with a landowner out there to install it, in our opinion, anyway. Yep.
Yes, with respect to the dumpster, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'm hoping that the illegal dumping will stop. There's not a dumpster there. Surely they won't dump garbage. And as far as people leaving appliances and stuff, it should be the same thing. So I'm optimistic as usual, but I'm hoping that the dumpster coming in there at 8 o'clock and being taken out at 5 will eliminate most of the problem, if not all the problem. And the local residents, as I mentioned to you, they are doing their own, let's call it neighborhood watch for illegal dumpers, and they do challenge them if they know they don't live there and they are dumping garbage there.
It's good. And actually, as a funny aside, we had someone call and complain today that wasn't a local resident, saying, "Where'd the dumpster go? I can't drop my stuff in it."
Yeah, quick one on that. I talked to a resident as well. Is that the best we can do is just the one day? And the reason I say that is if you're a young family and you've got a working job and they're in the school system, 8 to 5 is like business hours. So if you leave at 7:30 and you get home at 5:30 p.m. from work, which a lot of people do, you don't get a chance to drop it off. So I just wonder if there's any flexibility to, I know it's probably them doing their routes, but is there any way to have it till 6 p.m. even or 7 a.m. drop off? Just because if you're dropping your kids off at school, you got to leave that area, I'm assuming by 10:02 at the latest, probably 1:45. And then if you're working a job till 5, you're going to miss your only drop off you have for the entire week. So I think I love the suggestion. It's something the individual said we'll have to work through, but there could be weeks where they can't make it, which when I put myself in my shoes and that was me living on that road, I'd have to say I would miss it sometimes too with my schedule. So
If I can comment on that,
Yeah.
that would have to be a family up around Little Shamcook. I don't think there's anybody down on the main lake with small children. So there could be a couple houses, and it does create a problem. I realize that. If I'll I'll sleep on that one, see what I can.
Yeah, is there any flexibility though? Because
Well, yes and no. Our contractor is very flexible, but let's remember, he's got a work schedule with his men, so if he has to bring people in on overtime, that'll reflect on our cost to a certain extent. That's really the issue at the end of the day. He's very good about it, and not leaving it overnight was just because of the problems we ran into, so, but I perfectly see, and I'm glad you brought it forward, because I was surprised how few complaints we got at the town hall after the first couple of weeks of this, to be honest. It seems to be working out okay.
And the other option they would have would be to leave it there at 7:30, and then that first one there at 8 o'clock, after 8, put it in the dumpster.
Yeah.
You know, pretty good bunch there to work with, and they, you know, they'll do what they can to make it work.
Yeah, and maybe, and Councillor Weir's got a good point. If it's practical, I know it's not always, but if they had their own garbage cans, even they brought them to the same spot, you know, maybe it's not practical. Some people it is, some people it isn't. Then it'd be there, like he said, and I'm sure the hauler would be glad to throw them in and take everything away.
well, let's just parking lot that. Take it for what it's worth and see if there's a
Yeah.
solution. I just know if I put garbage into my road and it's not properly covered, within 5 minutes the crows are into it, making a big mess. So I don't think that unless you have a bin, but then you put a bin, then anyone's just going to throw their stuff there and it's going to be full. So you're kind of tough. Like yeah.
No, but I was just talking like the normal rollaway garbage cans that most people would have at their residences that live close to a road.
Yeah, they might be able to throw it in the back since, yeah, it's possible.
Anyway, I'll talk to the contractor tomorrow to see if they can add it later in the day or something.
Thank you.
The arena, it says oil contamination removal. It's all been removed. It's actually monitoring. You remember we went through this 3 years ago, I think, where we had an old buried tank in front of the arena. There's supposed to be wells and stuff.
Question on that one, is that mandated that we have to do that with no financial support from the Department of Environment? So it's their regulation, but they have no funds associated with it. I gotta wonder how many organizations that are in the oil and gas industry have to have these done across New Brunswick right now. It's kind of concerning that a municipality has to pay this.
Well, it's hit and miss, though. I mean, as you know, you're aware of the school is going through something similar every year for several years. Anyway,
That's just
that's the recommendation.
That's just a lot of money for a small community. When we've done our mitigation, it's almost, if they want to make sure it's done properly, they should be paying to do their follow-ups on it. We've done our job to clean it up. But that's just my opinion, and if we have to push back on looking for funds to do that, I think we should. $25,000 adds up pretty quickly.
Might I ask if the lot across the road from the O'Neill Center is being monitored?
I see no
It did
wells,
for
but
years and
yeah.
years. If you remember, there used to be what looked like a construction trailer on there, and that was a pump or whatever it was. It was testing the water for years and years. It must have met their regulations by some point, because it was removed probably 6 or 7 years ago, but they went for years and years where they were monitoring that.
And is this a line item that will be done at the end of this year? Or is this something that carries forward for the municipality for the foreseeable future?
Well,
It's $25,000 a year.
Who knows, to be perfectly blunt, when it comes to environmental. But this is kind of an estimate to get things going. If you have monitoring wells and the equipment already in them, then it may be $5,000 a year for reporting, for an engineer to come down, analyze the data. But this is really to get started on it, and we haven't done a deep dive into it. It could be less than that, but we're just looking at it now. We have delayed it.
Can we
They
delay
keep
it again?
asking.
Let them come to us and say you have to do it? We've done our mediation.
They've asked us before to do it.
Okay,
It's part of our
gotcha.
arrangement.
Probably more of a closed session item.
Maybe. And the last item is on this is insulate the brine pumps. So, long story short, the brine pumps are going through the system and they're picking up water, condensation, and it's causing some havoc with the equipment, I think. Did you want to? It's dripping into the tank and stuff. And so it just means things have to be adjusted more. It'd be a best practice to insulate them. It might have some power savings and stuff. I can't remember if it was on the report that we got from Dylan a few months ago. But there would be some savings in heat loss and stuff, or chill loss, I guess, in this case. And so it would help that somewhat too. But it wouldn't save itself money. It would take 20 years for it to pay for itself, to be honest. There's one other thing, I don't feel like there's two things, but there's one other thing that came to us today, late in the day, was the youth center. They would like, the seniors came in and some of the furniture's in rough shape. They'd like $5,000 spent to replace the furniture that's in there. That'd be cleanable, better set. There's also another request we have to investigate a little further, but the optics in the gym in there are fairly bad because it's, I don't know if it's concrete walls or not, but it is. If you've ever been in, you say something, it bounces. So they'd like to have some acoustic paneling. It's about $7,000. They just asked, that was our quick look on the internet search type of price without asking anybody. We'll have a look. The $5,000 I think is important. The $7,000, we will look and see if there's a way to work around that.
Councillor Harlan?
Just a comment on the seniors' activities at the youth center. I've received a number of really positive feedback around those activities. I think there's good uptake. I think we need to do a little bit more around advertising, hopefully some external posters that we can put up in places where some people might not know about, might not see it on social media, but really, really positive feedback. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and it's just, don't forget, 2 or 3 weeks in, so I think it's grow slowly before you ask too much, because the space is relatively limited, but he's doing a great job, and we've had great feedback on it.
Yeah, even today there were 15 people there for yoga, for the yoga program, and even groups asking, can they come at 9 o'clock so they can start doing their coffee groups? So it's picking up the way we were hoping it would.
Next slide, please. So this funding, again, is based that everything you saw on that list was provided, just to make it all balance out. Again, this is not a staff recommendation. This is just bringing forward everything we kind of see that you should consider, and frankly, able to say no to some of it. But so out of tax revenue, that won't change. That rate, well, it could change depending on what we say when we get back to operations, but we're going to have about between $950 to $1 million that will come out of tax revenue for capital. Right now, there's about $3.1 million in grants built in. Most of that's the wharf, of course. Borrowing, again, most of that's the wharf, but $2.6 million. And the fire truck. Well, the fire truck's happening this year. The capital reserve is the funding we put in every year. And then right now, I'm saying to use $165,000 from the tourism development funds. That probably drained like our portion up to 2022. So that's the recommendation there. So if you jump to the next slide, the debt servicing does take a big increase, though. That right now, where we're sitting, we're at about 4%. By within the budget, the payments always come out a year after we borrow. It's the way that works, and so it takes a couple of years to see the effect of the wharf project. But it does almost triple the debt servicing cost, and it's about a little over 4% of our budget right now. And by 3 years, if we followed the long-term plan that we have there, it'd be closer to 12%.
So just on funding, as we go through the lens and kind of do, I guess you could say, a deep dive into which ones can happen and which ones can't, I just wonder if there isn't a lens. We don't know. There's a provincial election right now, and I'm not saying one party or another, but the amount of funds that we've received for different projects, we've got some significant ones, don't get me wrong, that were announced a while ago, whether it be the trails or the wharf, where the province is contributing to our community. But the number of different projects that we've received money, at least in my experience over the last few years, has been significantly less than what we saw before. It's for some very good reasons, like debt payment, stuff like that, right? But I just wonder, as we go into a provincial election, is it almost a little strategic, realizing that A, spending could increase should government change, and B, right now what is being dangled in front of UMNB and of course in front of the provincial government is that basically with the mandated service under the Regional Service Commission, the lack of transfer payments, there's a lot of conversation over municipalities should be funded by more than just property tax. Strategically, should we not have that in the back of our minds when we're making decisions, realizing that whether it be kind of wastewater management, probably not a good example because there was only one, but let's say repaving a road, is it possible that because of the asset management that's across this province, there might be new funds that are now going to be available, whether it be this year or next year, that we could apply for and get other levels of government to also contribute to these projects versus us pay 100%. I know that's a bit of a roll the dice and see what happens because it may or may not happen, but in the same sense, we probably have enough backlog projects that we'll always find another one anyway. I'm just really skeptical to make a big splash and spend money when there could be programs that are coming up. Good example, I think it's one of the strongest moves that the council's made in the last 10 years is this wellness center. We went and did that all on our own between the Dunn Foundation and the taxpayer of St. Andrews. We had no support from the province of New Brunswick, any significant support, and now there's election promises happening saying that they are going to put community care centers in all these communities, which is great. I'm happy for them, but we paid for it ourselves. My big concern is we continue to pay things for ourselves and other people get it paid for by a percentage. So it's just something I want to bring to council's attention, whether those community care centers happen or not. A great example is RCMP. We pay a lot of money, and for RCMP, whether we get the service or not, we pay a lot of money. And what the province did is they took a look at the percentage of COP to POP ratio, and the municipalities that weren't having as many, weren't paying as much dollars for RCMP, end up getting 100% paid for RCMP as a result of it. So because we pay for it, we don't get it, but a municipality that saves money now gets it 100% paid for by the province. So you see where I'm going here is by handling it all on ourselves, and when they hand out money, I'm just saying that we get left out a lot. And I just think it's something that when we go through this cleanse, we should have in the back of our mind, is there money coming down the pipeline that may or may not cover that? Again, we don't know, but to do it all today on our own versus to have help in the future, it's something to weigh out.
Next slide, please. So we're going to have a quick look at the Utility Capital Fund. Did you want me to wait for you, Councillor? Okay. So funny enough,
Should we, we have closed session. I said 8:30 for council because second meeting. I don't want to defer, but we have some time to continue to plug away at budget because of the delay of the province. Is that correct? I'm just wondering if you want to go to closed session, if it makes sense just to defer the utility capital fund for another meeting, in essence of everyone's time because we've been meeting so regularly. I just want to get a quick show of council's hands if you'd like to keep this the 2 hours that we originally kind of scheduled, or if you want to get into the utility capital. Just a quick show of hands if you want to just defer the utility capital to another meeting. All right, so if you don't mind, Mr. Sears, sorry about that.
Party poopers.
But you have a closed session item, and I'm trying to get them out at 8:30. Sorry to be the time police, but after my talk about police officers. So let's jump back into the agenda. So that will wrap up the introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws. Nothing under new business. Question period. Did anything come in, Mr. Knopper? Anyone in the audience? No, they're good. Any member of council have any comments? I know we just had a regular meeting. Okay, we're good. So I'm good as well. So at 8:12 p.m., I'll be looking for a motion to go to closed session. I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Gumashell. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Your worship.
Okay, we'll take a moment for technology to shut down and go to
Just so
closed
you
session.
know what you're going into closed session for?
Oh, thank you. Please
Yeah,
tell.
so that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews went to closed session under the Local Governance Act, Section 68, 1F, information concerning legal opinions or advice provided to the local government by its solicitors or privileged communications between solicitor and client on local government matters.
That's exactly what I said. Thank you. Give a moment for technology to shut down.